Study Section 1. Phonology and Phonetics again. Introduction. This first study section is a review of basic terms and concepts in phonetics and phonology. Some of these concepts were discussed in the prerequisite course to this ENG 202, Introductory Phonetics and Phonology, while some new ones have been added. In this study section, you will learn about them. Learning outcomes for study section 1. When you have studied this section, you should be able to define and use correctly all of the key words printed in bold. Differentiate between phonetics and phonology. List facts about phonemes, allophones, and phones. 1. Phonetics and phonology. We discussed phonetics and phonology in the course Introductory English Phonetics and Phonology, which is a prerequisite to this present course. We need to refresh our memory by looking at these very crucial concepts again. Phonetics is the science of human speech sounds. It is a scientific study of human speech sounds. It studies the defining characteristics of human vocal noise and concentrates its attention on those sounds that occur in world languages. The three fields of phonetics are articulatory phonetics, which deals with how the speech organs interact in the course of speech production; acoustic phonetics, which deals with the physical ways in which sounds are transmitted, though the air from one person to another; and auditory phonetics, which studies the way human beings perceive sounds through the air. Hint: articulatory phonetics studies how the sound is produced. Acoustic phonetics studies how the air waves journey through the air. Auditory phonetics studies how the listener perceives the sounds. Phonology, as you already know, is the study of how sounds pattern in human languages. It is also used to refer to the knowledge speakers have about the sound pattern of their language. They know the rules governing the production of sounds and other things, and also know what patterns are possible or not in the language. Language is not randomly articulated noise. It is patterned noise. It is sound with organization. There are ranges of meaningful and organized noise possible in human languages. A particular language cannot make use of all these sounds. It therefore has its own inventory of sounds, referred to it as sound system, i.e., its phonology. Phonology therefore differs from phonetics in that phonology deals with sounds and their contrasts only within the concept of individual languages, whereas phonetics studies sounds not in specific languages. Phonetics is even sometimes called general phonetics. All possible human sounds are concerns of phonetics, unlike phonology, which is language specific. The conclusion we reach on the phonology of a language must not be generalized into the study of another language. The basic unit of phonology is the phoneme, while the basic unit of phonetics is the phone. Hint: all languages in the world use the same phonetics, but each language has its own phonology. The phonology of this language is different from that of the other. When we discuss syntax and morphology, we describe the components of sentences at various levels. Morphemes, words, phrases, Also, in phonology, we are interested in the ways in which sounds combine to form words. And there are again a number of different levels of description, generalizations or rules about how different sounds can be combined to form words old at each of the levels we shall see below. Organization of sounds. Words. G plus T. Syllables. G plus T. Segments. G plus space plus T plus H. Features. These are descriptions of each of the sounds. E.g., G quoted is voiceless, vela, stop, etc. We shall discuss this in details in lecture. This diagram presents the word as divisible into syllables and syllables into segments, which are further divisible into features. Classical phonemes will review the segments as an indivisible unit of sound, but generative phonology will portray the segments as divisible into features, such as the example of G above, which is plus vela plus voice plus stop. 2. Phonemes, allophones, and phones. We have discussed this concept in the course Introductory Phonetics and Phonology, ENG 202. It is good to quickly take a look at them again to refresh our memory. A phoneme is a distinct sound of a language. It is an abstract sound that is able to contrast the meaning of words in any human language, and changing a phoneme to another in similar contexts will result in a change of meaning. The phoneme is the fundamental unit of phonology. Many phonological theories hold that spoken language can be broken down into a string of sound units, which are phonemes. It is believed that each language has a small, relatively fixed set of these phonemes, which are combined in various ways to form the words that are spoken in that language. Phonemes can be put into groups. In the English language, under the group plosives are the phonemes. They are P, B, T, D, K, G. Phonemes have many variants depending on the position in the word, since by now we know that sounds tend to be modified by the environments in which they occur. These variants are called allophones. Allophones are the phonetic variants of a phoneme. They are very similar sounds in a language that cannot change the meaning of words, but add phonetic details to the word. The allophone of any phoneme are all alternative pronunciation for a phoneme, but the allophone selected in a given situation is often predictable. Let's do a quick revision of the example in ENG 202. P, H, e.g. pin, aspirated. P, N, e.g. happen, nasally released. P, L, e.g. apple, laterally released. P, O, e.g. top coat, unreleased. We already know that phones are phonetics units of sounds with detailed production. They are called allophones when they are grouped together under a phoneme. So we say allophones of the same phoneme. PN, PL, and PO are allophones of the same phoneme. Appropriate phones of a language can only be produced when you know the phonological rules of that language. After applying those phonological rules on the abstract phonemes, you will come up with appropriate phones. 2.1. Phonemic and phonetic alphabets. The phonetic alphabet is universal. It contains all the possible sounds of human languages. Each language has its own inventory as a part of this larger collection. However, the phonemic alphabet is language specific. It varies from language to language. For example, English has no nasal vowel in its phonemic inventory or alphabet. All English vowels are oral. However, in the Yoruba language, there is a nasal vowel because nasality of vowel contrasts meaning in Yoruba minimal pairs, e.g., sa to run and sa to crack. In English speech, oral vowels get nasalized only when they occur before nasal consonants and they do not contrast meaning. This means nasal vowels are phonemic in Yoruba but phonetic in English. This implies that though there are no memorized nasal vowels in English, there are physically produced nasal vowels in certain contexts. Before nasal consonants, in consequence, among the phonemic alphabets of English, there are no nasal vowels, but among the phonetic alphabets, there are nasalized vowels. Another good example is aspiration, which in English is phonetic, but in Thai phonemic. The addition of aspiration to P in Thai will change the meaning of words such that pa has a different meaning from pie. In English, however, whether aspiration is added to the P of PIN, pin, or not, the meaning remains the same, but though it affects correct pronunciation. Do not forget what we learned in ENG 202 class, that phonemes, which we now know are mental alphabets, are put between slashes, while phones, which are actual sounds, are put between square brackets. Therefore, aspirated PH will be put within the square brackets in English because it is phonetics, while it will be put within slashes in Thai because it is phonemic. 2.2. How to identify the phonemes of a language. An important question in phoneme theory is how do we identify what constitutes phonemes in a language? We can simply do this by noting that the phoneme is the sound that is in the speaker's mind. This is different from what he or she utters, which are phones. Phones are sounds derived from phonemes that are put in context. They are therefore sounds that are affected by the context in which they occur. How then can we find out what is in someone's mind? How do we know how the speakers of a language store the sounds of words in that language in their memories? We already know that phonemes are contrastive and that sounds that occur in exact positions in words and contrast the meaning of such words are assumed to be distinct phonemes of that language. We therefore need to find cases where the difference between two words is dependent on the difference between two phonemes in the same position of two words in such language. In ENG 202, we discuss minimum pairs and minimal sets. For example, we can prove that the difference between pen and pan depends on the vowels E and A. In the same position of the two words, we can therefore conclude that in the English language, E and A are different phonemes. Pairs of words that differ in just one phoneme are known as minimal pairs. When they are more than a pair, they are called minimal sets. We can establish the same fact about P and B by citing pin and been. However, to test the possibility of phonemes through minimal pairs or sets, there must be a process of phonetic analysis which will make possible a provisional list of possible phonemes in the language under analysis. Let's look at the following pair too. In brackets, S, P, and in bracket, Z, P. There are two different words of English that differ only in their initial sounds. Therefore, the difference between S and Z is significant for many in the English language. It is therefore assumed that the sounds S and Z are stored in the memory of English speakers as part of their mental alphabets. Each of these pairs is minimal pair: peel, bill, kill, jill, tin, din, pin, bin. Let us look at these words which constitute a minimal set in English. Minimal sets, words, sounds that differentiate meanings. Under minimal sets, in brackets, bits, words, bits, sounds that differentiate meaning, long I. Minimal sets, belt, words, bits, sounds that differentiate meaning, long A. Minimal sets, BT, words, bits, sounds that differentiate meaning. Minimal set, bets, words, bets, sounds that differentiate meaning, hair. Minimal set, bats, words, bats, sounds that differentiate meaning, ha. Boats, boots, bots, bots. The sounds that differentiate the meanings differs. This minimal set confirms that all the vowels listed under sounds that differentiate meanings in the table above are mentally distinct in English. They are therefore regarded as phonemic. Take 2. The minimal set confirms that all the vowels listed under sounds that differentiate meanings in the table above are mentally distinct in English. They are therefore regarded as phonemic. Complementary distribution. Sounds are said to be complementary distribution where one occurs, the other does not. This is a common characteristic of allophones of the same phoneme. Where one occurs, the other will never be found there. A nasally released P, PN, will never occur before a lateral sound. An aspirated P, in brackets, PH, will never occur at word boundary. Finally, where you may find an unreleased P, in bracket PO. Let us use the aspiration rule in English as example. Where unaspirated, in bracket P, is found, the aspirated, in bracket PH, will not be found. They are then said to be in complementary distribution. P, in brackets, PH, in brackets, syllable initial, P, no, PH, yes. Followings, P, yes, PH, no. Syllable final, P, yes, PH, no. 2.4. Context. In the example above, syllable initial following S in slash and syllable final are context for the two phonetic sounds in question, in bracket P and in bracket PH. In phonology, contexts are environments of sounds. The context of a sound could be other sounds in the environment of the sound you're dealing with, i.e., the sound before or after it. The context of a sound can also be determined by parameters such as the location of the sound, such as whether or not the sound occurs initially as the first sound of a word, medially at the middle of the word, or finally at the end of the word. Sounds tend to adjust or adapt to the characteristics of other sounds in the environment in which they occur. This adjustment or adaptation is responsible for the phonetic variants of phonemes, such as affect our example, the P sound, which could be realized as PH, PL, and PO, depending on context. 2.5 Boundary. Boundary is a very important notion in phonetics and phonology. At the segmental level, we need to know where one segment ends and another begins. Establishing boundaries may be very difficult because some sounds are not easily divisible. For instance, determining syllable boundaries, especially in the English language, could be difficult. Let us look at the word extra. Translated, which of these options will be correct? Y, E plus stra, EK plus stra, EKS plus stra, EKST plus ra, EKSTR plus hair. We will readdress this when we get to the next study section, which is sequences of English phonemes. Apart from the phoneme boundaries of words, there are boundaries for stress, in brackets, word and sentence stress, close brackets, intonation and rhythm. For stress in the English language, the boundaries are not usually predictable by simple rules, but for intonation and rhythm. The notions of intonation and rhythm groups confirm boundaries. Phonemic and phonetic transcription systems. We discussed this while dealing with ENG 202, Introductory Phonetics and Phonology. It is very important to go through it again in this course because it is expected that you are able to do both phonetics and phonemic transcription as well as differentiate them. Transcription is the visual representation of speech sounds using particular symbols. Symbols are very specific and non-negotiable. A symbol in phonetics has a specific meaning and representation. If it is changed, it is no longer representing that sound which it's supposed to represent. It is important to know this because in the course of your contact with phonetics and phonology, you will be reading and doing transcription. There are two types of transcription: phonemic transcription and phonetic transcription. The phonemic transcription is abstract transcription. You can infer that from the word phoneme, which by now you should be used to. While the phonetic transcription is detailed, you can also infer the meaning from phonetics as earlier learned. ITQ, which among the two transcriptions uses diacritics. ITA, phonetic transcription. Brackets. Earlier on, we differentiated phonemes and phones, and in the course of doing that, referred to the brackets. The conventional way of writing phonetics or phonemic transcription is to use brackets at the beginning and end of the word. Take two. The conventional way of writing phonetics or phonemic transcription is to use brackets at the beginning and end of the sound, word, or passage to indicate the nature of the symbols. Phonemic transcriptions are usually placed within slant brackets, which are also known as obliques. On the other hand, square brackets are used to enclose phonetic transcription. For example, for the word pin, the abstract phonemic transcription will be slant bracket pin, while the detailed phonetic transcription will be PH round bracket pin. We will add additional features as necessary. Summary of Study Section 1. In the foregoing lecture, we revise the basic concepts that are used in phonetics and phonology, with the addition of new concepts. We differentiated phonemes, allophones, and phones, and related them to the transcription systems. Phonemic and phonetics. Phonemic transcription are consisted of phonemes, while phonetic transcriptions are composed of phones. We also discussed how to identify the phonemes of a language using minimal pairs and sets, and looking for complementary distribution. End of Study Section 1. Thanks for listening.